Ladies, when a man hurts you emotionally, mentally, or even through silence, your first instinct might be to cry, to react, or to seek closure. But today, I want to share something different. Not revenge, not pettiness, but power. Power through calm. Power through silence. Power through unexpected moves. Because the best way to confuse a man who hurt you is to rise, not break. Let's dive into 4 key strategies to do just that. When someone you care about hurts you, the natural reaction is emotional. You might feel like screaming, crying, asking why, or trying to fix things right away. That reaction is deeply human. But if you truly want to take your power back, especially from someone who hurt you, the first and most effective step is learning how to detach emotionally and react without reacting. When you stay calm in the middle of emotional chaos, it sends a very different message. Men, especially those who expect control or emotional responses, are often prepared for drama. They expect you to lash out, to beg, to plead, or to spiral. But imagine this, instead of texting paragraphs or calling him for closure, you say nothing. Instead of reacting with pain, you respond with peace. That's powerful. That's confusing to him. It makes him ask himself questions. Why isn't she calling me? Why isn't she angry? Did she even care? Did I lose her for real? This level of detachment doesn't mean you don't feel the hurt. It doesn't mean you're cold or heartless. It means you're choosing not to give him the satisfaction of seeing you break. It means you're choosing to protect your dignity over your emotions. That's strength. And it takes practice. Emotional detachment isn't about building a wall around your heart. It's about learning how to not let someone else's actions control your peace. The moment you stop reacting is the moment he loses power. Think about that. When a man knows he can press a button and make you cry or spiral, he holds emotional control. But if he pushes and you stay grounded, calm, and silent, he gets confused. What happened? Did she stop loving me? Is she talking to someone else? Has she already moved on? Those are the thoughts that begin to plague him, not because you played a game, but because you took your control back. Emotional detachment is about recentering. Instead of using your energy on him, redirect it to yourself. Focus on your breathing, your day, your healing. Cry in private, but show up in public with poise. Vent to a trusted friend or write it out in a journal, but keep your outward presence calm and composed. That's how you begin to emotionally untangle yourself from the pain he caused. The less he sees of your suffering, the more he questions the depth of his impact. And here's the psychological twist. Men are wired to notice what's missing. If you're always there, always responding, always showing your hurt, they become numb to it. But when that disappears, when the calls stop, the texts vanish, and your presence fades, that silence speaks louder than your loudest scream. It unsettles him. It makes him wonder what changed and why. By reacting without reacting, you protect your self-worth. Because no reaction is not weakness, it's control. It shows that even if you're hurting, you value yourself enough not to crumble in front of someone who caused that pain. That kind of control isn't fake strength. It's a muscle you're building. Each time you choose to pause before you respond, each time you choose silence over chaos, you are reminding yourself, I'm in charge of my emotions, not him. He might test you. He might try to provoke a reaction again, even subtly. A text, a social media post, an attempt to check in. Not because he cares, but because he wants to see if he still has that emotional grit. That's when detachment becomes your superpower. You see it, you feel it, but you don't respond to it. You don't let him pull you back into the same pattern. That's how you confuse him. He expected the old version of you, but she's gone. The new version is graceful, composed, and quiet, and that quiet is deafening. Sometimes women think they have to yell to be heard, but real power is silent. It's in the way you choose peace over chaos, the way you refuse to argue, the way you walk away instead of begging someone to see your worth. A man who hurt you doesn't deserve your breakdown. He deserves to see your breakthrough. Detaching emotionally doesn't mean you never cared. It means you're choosing not to let that care destroy you. You're letting go of control. You're allowing the pain to exist without letting it take over. And most importantly, you're sending a clear, silent message. You don't have the power to break me anymore. So if you've been hurt and you want to confuse the man who did it, start here. React without reacting. Let him sit in silence. Let him wonder. Let him feel the distance grow, not because you're playing a game, but because you're rising and he's no longer part of your emotional reality. That's how you shift the power. That's how you start healing. And that's how you make him realize exactly what he lost. When someone hurts you, it's easy to feel like everything in your world has paused. You might lose sleep, feel disconnected from yourself, and even start questioning your worth. But this is the moment, the exact moment, where your greatest transformation can begin. Instead of shrinking, instead of trying to prove your worth to someone who didn't see it, you level up. You shift all that emotional energy back into yourself. You focus on your growth so loudly and unapologetically that it confuses the man who hurt you. He expects you to fall apart. He expects to hear from others that you've been crying over him, that you're lost without him. He expects to feel like he still has space in your mind. But the biggest twist, when you start building the life he thought you'd never have without him, when you show up with a smile that's real, a confidence that's glowing, and a focus so sharp it leaves no room for him, that's when the confusion begins. Your glow up is not just about looks, although that can be part of it. It's about energy. It's how you walk into a room. It's how you start showing up for yourself. Maybe you start going to the gym. Maybe you finally take that class you've been putting off. Maybe you change your style, your mindset, your circle. And here's the best part. You don't do it to make him jealous. You do it because you deserve it. You do it because loving yourself is more important than being loved by someone who didn't value you. A powerful woman isn't one who never falls. She's the one who gets back up and shines even brighter. And when you level up, it sends a message. You didn't break me. You built me. That energy is magnetic. People notice. He'll notice maybe not right away, but eventually he will see the difference. He will hear about your progress. He will see that photo you post, not with a false smile, but with a spark in your eyes. And he'll remember the version of you he had and realize he'll never get this new one back. Leveling up is also about reclaiming your time. Instead of obsessing over what went wrong or trying to decode mixed signals, you get busy. You fill your schedule with things that feed your soul. You start surrounding yourself with people who uplift you. You go after goals you might have delayed while trying to hold on to that relationship. You replace overthinking with action, and action changes everything. He might come back around casually just to check. Maybe he'll send a message like, hey, how have you been? But by then you've grown. You're not the same woman he left. You're not emotionally waiting for breadcrumbs. You're busy, not pretending to be, but genuinely living your life. That's the kind of leveling up that speaks louder than any words. This transformation confuses him because it challenges everything he assumed. He thought he had more time. He thought you'd wait. He thought you needed him to feel whole. But now he sees a version of you that's thriving, and he doesn't recognize her. That's the version of you he can't control, can't predict, and can't reach anymore. And the beauty is, the more you pour into yourself, the less you care about his opinion. His validation stops mattering. Because you're finally giving yourself the love you kept trying to get from him. You look in the mirror and you see progress. You feel proud. Not because he's watching, but because you finally are. This isn't about revenge. It's not about proving a point. It's about healing through elevation. It's about understanding that the best version of you was never going to be born through comfort. It was always going to be born through pain and growth. What he did may have hurt you, but it also pushed you. It forced you to stop waiting and start becoming. You don't have to make announcements. You don't have to explain yourself. Let your transformation speak for itself. Let your peace, your glow, and your progress do the talking. Because nothing is more confusing to someone who hurt you than seeing you become the woman he was never ready for. So take care of your mind, nourish your body, protect your heart, upgrade your dreams, dress in a way that makes you feel powerful, walk with confidence even if you had to fake it at first. Eventually that confidence becomes real. You become her, the version of you that was always meant to emerge but was buried beneath heartbreak and hope. Let your life become the answer to every why did he leave. Let your success be the closure. Let your happiness be the final chapter. Because when you level up, not only do you confuse the man who hurt you, you free yourself from ever needing his understanding or approval again. There's a certain kind of power that comes with unpredictability, especially when someone thinks they've figured you out. When a man hurts you, he might assume he knows exactly how you'll respond. He might expect anger, sadness, desperate texts, or attempts to fix things. But when you do the opposite, when you change your patterns and shift your energy, you throw him off balance. Suddenly, the narrative he built in his head no longer matches reality, and that confusion becomes your advantage. People, especially those who play emotional games, rely on patterns. They know what to expect because that's how they maintain control. If you always respond immediately, they expect that consistency. If you always seek closure, they know they can walk away and return on their own terms. But when you begin to shift, when your reactions don't match their expectations, you become unpredictable. And unpredictability is powerful because it breaks the cycle. It forces them to reevaluate how much they actually understood you. And that's when they start questioning their decisions. Being unpredictable doesn't mean playing games or being manipulative. It means growing past the version of yourself that was easy to read, easy to access, and easy to hurt. If you've always responded emotionally, now you respond with calm detachment. If you used to be available every time he called, now you take your time. Not to prove a point, but because your time is now being spent on things that serve you. If you used to seek validation through conversation, now you find it within yourself. That's what throws him off. He may try to test the waters. Maybe he sends a casual message, or maybe he posts something online hoping to get your attention. When you don't engage, when you don't bite the bait, he creates space for reflection. Not just for him, but for you too. You begin to realize that you're no longer operating from a place of emotion, but from a place of intention. That's the shift that makes all the difference. Changing your pattern also invites healing. It forces you to step outside the cycle of reaction and pain and into the space of self-respect. When you no longer feel the need to respond to every action or explain yourself constantly, you give yourself permission to just exist peacefully, quietly, and powerfully. And in that space, you grow. He doesn't expect that. He expects you to stay in the emotional loop, to stay caught up in what happened, to keep replaying the past. But you're not there anymore. You've moved on, not necessarily to another person, but to another version of yourself. That's where the confusion sets in for him. He wonders why the emotional attachment doesn't look the same. He wonders why he no longer gets the same access, the same energy, the same responses. And when someone no longer has access to the version of you they took for granted, it triggers something deeper than regret. It creates discomfort because unpredictability forces them to see you not as someone who needs them, but as someone who is doing just fine without them. He may not even be trying to confuse him. You're just living differently. You're focused on your peace, your growth, your boundaries. But from his perspective, it's a disruption. And that disruption makes him wonder. It makes him curious. It makes him look at you differently. Not because he suddenly values you more, but because he realizes he never really understood your strength until now. When you shift your energy and stop feeding into the dynamic that once drained you, you start to reclaim your emotional power. You stop being the one who explains, who chases, who waits. Instead, you become the one who watches, who chooses, who decides. That shift changes everything. It repositions you from someone reacting to pain to someone creating peace. Let him be confused. Let him wonder. Let him sit in the silence that once was filled with your words, your energy, your presence. You don't need to announce your growth. You don't need to prove anything. The change is in your pattern, your stillness, your peace, your lack of interest in old dynamics. Those things say more than any explanation ever could. And eventually he'll realize that the woman he thought he could hurt and come back to is no longer available. She's no longer predictable. She's no longer playing the same role. She's living by a new script, one where she puts herself first. That's the kind of confusion that leads to clarity, not for him, but for you. Because in breaking your own pattern, you begin to build the life, the mindset, and the love that you always deserved. There's a quiet strength in moving forward with dignity, especially when someone has caused you pain. When a man hurts you, the natural reaction might be to lash out, demand answers, or make sure he knows how much he broke you. But what truly confuses him, what truly makes him stop and think, is when you choose silence and composure. And when you walk away without drama, without begging, without putting your pain on display, you become unforgettable, not because you created a scene, but because you didn't. People often expect emotional explosions after they've done something hurtful. They expect accusations, crying, pleading, maybe even insults. That's what they're prepared for. And when you don't give them any of that, when you stay calm, when you don't react, when you carry yourself with grace, they don't know how to process it. That's when they start wondering. That's when they realize they might have underestimated you. Silence becomes louder than any words you could have said. Your dignity becomes the response they never saw coming. Choosing dignity doesn't mean you weren't hurt. It doesn't mean you're ignoring the pain or pretending to be okay. It means you're choosing not to let someone else's actions drag you into a version of yourself you'll later regret. It means you're protecting your peace even while you're healing. It's not about being emotionless. It's about being emotionally intelligent. You don't need to prove your worth to someone who couldn't see it in the first place. You don't need to fight for clarity from someone who didn't offer it willingly. That's the power of quiet strength. This strength shows up in the way you don't chase. It shows in the way you don't try to explain yourself endlessly. It shows in the way you remove yourself from chaos without trying to fix it. You understand that closure isn't something someone gives you. It's something you create for yourself. You accept what happened, and even though it hurts, you choose to release it rather than stay entangled in it. That's a level of maturity that's rare, and rare things are always remembered. What confuses him is not just the silence, but the fact that you didn't fall apart in front of him. You didn't give him the satisfaction of watching you unravel. You didn't make it his responsibility to fix what he broke. Instead, you took that responsibility back into your own hands. You began to rebuild in private. You started focusing on yourself. You cried when no one was watching, but you still showed up for yourself every day. And in doing that, you started rising. Eventually, he might try to come back, not because he suddenly became a better person, but because your strength became magnetic. He starts to remember the version of you he took for granted. But now that version has evolved. She's no longer available in the same way. She no longer seeks the same things, and she no longer accepts the same treatment. That's the cost of hurting someone who chooses to walk away with grace. You don't get to see who they become without you. Walking away with dignity doesn't mean you didn't love deeply. It means you loved yourself enough to not lose yourself in someone else's chaos. It means you refuse to let your heartbreak turn you into someone bitter or vengeful. You chose peace over revenge. You chose silence over shouting. And that choice makes all the difference. He might look for signs that you're struggling but find none. He might wait for a reaction, but you've given all the energy you're going to give. He might even ask around, curious about how you're doing, only to hear that you're focused on your life, your goals, your happiness. That's when it really hits. That's when he realizes he didn't just lose your presence. He lost your future. And there's nothing more confusing to someone who expected to come back whenever they pleased than realizing the door is no longer open. Your silence is not weakness. It's power. It's restraint. It's knowing that some things don't deserve your energy even if they hurt. You didn't pretend not to feel it. You just chose to heal without putting your wounds on display. And that kind of self-respect is unforgettable. In the end, the man who hurt you might never say sorry. He might never fully understand what he did. But that doesn't matter. What matters is that you didn't let his actions define your worth. You didn't let the pain stop you from growing. You kept your head high, even when your heart was breaking. And that silent strength, that graceful exit, is what confuses him more than any confrontation ever could. Because he expected a storm, but instead, you gave him peace. And that peace became your power.